Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Nur Fatin binti Ismail, and today I'm going to present about cross-functional make or buy decision process ownership. So the purpose of this paper is to explore the area of process ownership and management in cross-functional make or buy decision processes. So as for the introduction, the make or buy decision process is the process that decides whether to make or buy an activity or product. This is because most organizations today use a combination of both make and buy strategies. Secondly, make or buy decisions are one of the most difficult tasks faced by organizations, and models have been developed to help comprehend data. Management also faces complex choices regarding which operation to keep in-house and which to outsource. So, given the complexity of these decisions, it is very imperative to have rigid methodologies to assist with these decisions. Strategic, operational, and financial make or buy methodologies include a range of steps that need to be taken before the decision is made. These models are very useful in the sense that they explain the different steps that are needed to reach a decision. Furthermore, it is stated that these types of decision processes should be cross-functional, and failure to implement the decision processes can result in missed opportunities and poor decisions. As for the theoretical framework, it is specifically concerned with the ownership of cross-functional make or buy decision processes. The process owner is responsible for the design of the process, that the process follows strategic directions and no ad hoc decisions are taken. By having process owners, the make or buy decisions are pushed through the process with continuous support, and relevant literature for this paper is summarized in two parts, which is process ownership in general and process ownership in cross-functional make or buy decision processes. First one is process ownership in general. So the word process is defined as the series of activities that are necessary to deliver a desirable outcome from the organization's perspective. Processes are the means through which value is brought to the customer, and they must be owned and managed by someone, usually an individual who with help from a team is responsible for its development, deployment, maintenance, and also evolution. The process owner and process manager can be the same person, and a process manager can be responsible for both the operation of the process as well as the utilization of allocated resources. The process manager can also be considered a champion, where a champion is a manager who promotes the process, creates internal acceptance for proposals, and also to make sure that the process has sufficient resources, and they also has broad general knowledge, experience in a range of domains, and are well versed in emerging technologies, products, processes, and markets. However, there are some drawbacks with having a different process manager and owner, which it involves arguments on what is an allowable deviation from the generic process and who will pay for improvements. Next, there is a fine line between the process owners and the process manager's responsibilities, where process ownership ensures that everyone in an organization understands for which processes they are responsible and know the process customers and also suppliers. And if several functions or people handle and act separately without anyone being responsible for keeping the process together, and if the processes are too divided in their different stages, then errors are inevitable. The second one is process ownership in cross-functional make or buy decision processes, and the importance of having a process owner in a cross-functional process can be reflected in the fact that while former goal-setting processes have encouraged managers to develop a common vision of the future, the day-to-day operating decisions may be creating a pattern of strategy that is inconsistent with that vision. There can also be functional imbalance incorporated in cross-functional make or buy decision processes, such as different amount of representation or sub-optimized decisions. This imbalance has led to representation and responsibilities in the process being of importance. As competition has become increasingly knowledge-based, organizations have to develop organizational capabilities on several levels, especially in the field of innovation and knowledge. There are several opportunities for make or buy decisions and combinations of the alternatives. Next is research methodology, where the research took a two-step explorative approach. For methodological approach, the research entails a dual methodological approach. By using a dual approach, the studies could compensate for each other's weaknesses. For instance, the longitudinal in-depth case provided a close-up view on patterns and how they evolve, while the retrospective cases identified these patterns' suggestive dynamic process. The retrospective cases were selected on a more analytical ground, where wanting to capture the dynamics and variation which could occur even though the cases had the same unit of analysis. Next, the two retrospective cases based on the same unit of analysis gave a foundation for comparison and also analysis of variations. Next, selection criteria, where the two shorter case studies were chosen on 5 sampling criteria to fit the scope of the paper, and the purpose of the sampling is to identify a sample that can provide data for extended or replicated theory. And the first selection criterion was that the organizations had to be manufacturing organizations. Next, the organizations also had to be large, because the larger the organization, the more structure that is required. And since larger organizations are more likely to have worldwide production facilities, design centers, and marketing and sales activities. Lastly, the sample has to produce complex products, because complex products consist of a high number of parts, functions, and interfaces, and a variety of different capabilities are needed to develop and produce complex products and systems, and therefore cross-functionality is needed. The third one is data collection. When collecting the data, the focus was on understanding different functional roles and responsibilities, and all the studies included interviews with managers within different functions connected in one way or the other to the make or buy decision process. The main methods used were interviews, observations, and written documentaries. The use of multiple data sources or triangulation is very important in case research, and deliberately seeking confirmation from different data sources that leads to more reliable results. As for the analysis, the collected data were first reduced and coded. Qualitative data analysis often starts with data reduction, since there is a need for simplification in the analysis process. Data reduction is systematically choosing and thereby excluding information for the coming analysis. A useful technique to retract structure from chaos is to organize the data in a variety of patterns. First, the extracted data were organized into categories which were highly related to this paper's research purpose. Lastly, the analysis process then included searching for similarities or differences within previous literature and between the cases in each group. Subsequently, a cross-case analysis was done to obtain conclusions and recommendations for further research. Last one is research quality, where there are several methods that have been used in this research, such as interviews, observations, and also written documentations. So to assure validity, the most reasonable approach is to use a combination of methods. Therefore, validation of the data collected was completed through a number of methods. First, all interviews were transcribed immediately after finishing the session. Second, all involved organizations were given the chance to give feedback on interview summaries. Third, presentations were given to most of the organizations involved in order to get quick and accurate feedback on the data collected. And lastly, comparison between the interviewee data and the second sources was undertaken, and this included taking information from documents, meeting notes, and internal web pages and comparing the findings. As for the conclusions in this explorative study shows that the organizations internally have different reasons for putting diverse functions in charge of the cross-functional make or buy decision process. All three organizations were chosen on the basis of having similar features, but however, their approach towards who drives the make or buy decision process differs. Returning to the purpose of this paper, the options on what function is most suitable to be process owner of the cross-functional make or buy decision process and why have been explored. So the most suitable function is a neutral function, or a function that can balance the need between different functions while still having the organization's strategic goal in focus. The reason is that this function has a holistic interest in the organization as a whole, and this function needs to be highly knowledgeable about the industrial network of the organization as well as the capabilities that exist within the organizations. And that is all from me. Thank you so much for listening.